to the course. My name is Fuad, and this video series will help you understand your reading material, assessment, and health professionals education. Now I'll point out to you in this series what's important, what's not so important. So let's go right to it.
Okay, what follows is a series of discussions regarding constructed response items, right? So this begins in page 113, right? This is in page 113. Okay, where the author starts off by discussing when do you want to use short answer and when you want to use long answer formats. Basically, as we have discussed previously, the short answer you sample more, and therefore if you want a more reliable results, you would go for short answer questions because you can sample more, right? And but it does mean that the sampling is just at the surface. Probably ask them to define, ask them to just things which you can ask students to write in a short time. Okay, so it says that permits a broader sampling of content, more questions can be asked and answered, and the reliability of the content is thus improved, right? So it's what we're saying here. However, says if the purpose of the test is to sample a narrow domain, you want to see just a narrow domain, just a very specialized topic, for example, and you want the answers to be detailed, and deep. You want to test how deep, how much do they know, the minute details depending on your objectives. Then you would go for long answer questions. Okay, so that is the gist of the first discussion regarding constructed response items. The second discussion about constructed response items is regarding scoring rubrics. What do we mean by scoring rubrics? What we mean is that a guide for raters, for lecturers to give marks for the questions. Now, bear in mind, I think you are familiar in Malaysia. What happens usually, most of the time, is that the lecturer prepares an answer key. Answer key, as the name states, is a list of what answers to look for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and most of the time this is the only thing which is supplied. And what happens is that the lecturer now hunts for these answers in the candidate's answer sheet. There's one there. So this is one answer sheet, answer script from the candidate. Then says, oh yes, there's one there. There's one there. Okay, there's one there. So okay, he got three marks. And then maybe he will say 3 out of 10. Okay. So this is the answer key. The answer key is necessary, but it focuses just on the content. Of the answer. What about the other things? Okay, so that is what is usually lacking in the essay scoring exercise in Malaysia. Okay, now how we score actually what is recommended is that we produce also rating scales. Okay, rating scales can be either global scoring or analytical scoring. Right, so it means, for example, if you want to give marks for the candidates, you have a scale of, let's say, excellent, good, borderline, poor. Okay, you give a mark here, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now that's a scale. Okay, so you can attach definitions of what is excellent, what is good, what is borderline, what is poor. Okay, and this definition can change according to the domain of the answer. So now you can direct the rater's attention to maybe, of course, content. So excellent, you might describe all points written, provided. Okay, good is most points. Borderline is nearly half points. Okay, poor is no point or very few points. Okay, but now you can go more than just content. You can describe, for example, logic of argument. So for excellent, you can give the definition, what you mean by a good logic in the argument, and maybe you can say uses references, quotes references well, whatever. So you can give the definition here, and the definition of good may be not as good as the one in excellent, but you give quotes some references, for example, etc., etc. What is borderline, what is poor. So you can have as many domains as you think are important. So you can go for content, you can go for argument, you can go for language. Okay, so that's what is recommended when we score an essay. Okay, so if you just have a look at all the overall answer and give the judgment, we call this as global scoring. But if you are directed to domains, for example, the content, the logic of argument, you look at the language and handwriting. So you have these domains, we call it as analytical scoring. Okay, you can have so another type or another feature of the rating is either you have a Likert type scoring, or you can have a behaviorally anchored rating scale, or the bars. Okay, you can have a look at table 7.3 in page 115 for an example of a bars. So in the bars, there is actually the scale and the description of a scale, the name. Okay, and now you have the domains. So in the example, it says that the factual accuracy and the structural relationships and the writing. It happens to be an anatomy question, for example. Okay, for the scale, you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Description 5 is excellent. You have good, satisfactory, marginal, unsatisfactory. So the author then describes what under fact, what is excellent, what is good, what is satisfactory, what is marginal, and under structural relationships, what is the definition or the behavior that is required, as well as in the writings. Please have a look at the table. Okay. That is in terms of the scoring, and therefore do we go for holistic scoring or general the what we call here as the global scoring, or we want to go for analytic scoring? Okay, we'll talk about selected response items now. Selected response items, and we start off with the advantages. All right, advantages of selected response items, and the author lists these advantages such as the ability to assess many levels of cognitive knowledge. All right. Because you might have heard people saying that the selected response items, the objective questions, the MCQs, can only assess the lower levels of knowledge, remembering, can I just ask factual recall. Okay, whereas a well-written selected response items such as the single best answer, the extended matching, key feature questions and things like that can actually assess higher levels of cognitive knowledge. Okay, they are efficient. Now, what do you mean by efficient? Meaning the sampling over the unit of time, over a unit of time. So the more that an exam format can sample in a unit of time, the more efficient it is. And of course, the objective question, the multiple choice questions are one of the most efficient examination formats available. Usually we say we allocate about 2 minutes per question. So you can just imagine if you have 1 hour, you can ask 30 questions, 30 items per hour. Okay, compared to if you have a long essay, you typically give them 20 minutes, for example. Maybe it may be 30 minutes per question, meaning you can have just 3 items per hour. Okay, and related to that, the advantages is it can sample broadly. Okay, so this also relates to the validity, because you can efficiency relates to reliability, whereas the sampling, the broad sampling, the areas that you sample is related to validity, because you can sample more of the content compared to an essay. You can sample equally the content areas using a selected response as well as a constructed response, but of course if you want to sample using an essay, all the areas which sampled by the MCQ, you might need a lot of hours to cover all those, okay, which might not be feasible. Okay, and related to that is that they are then highly discriminating. They are highly discriminating. What does that mean? It can differentiate between good performers versus bad performers. So it can differentiate, it can discriminate. So if all students sit for the exam, the results, you can be more assured that the results will reflect the true performance, the true cognitive competency of the candidates. You can really know who are the good ones and who are the bad ones using a multiple true-false question or a selected response item. Okay. And lastly, the advantages, they are, when we use them, it is easy to produce detailed feedback, meaning because usually we use computer software to scan the results, and therefore this computer software can also be programmed to produce a feedback to the students, to teachers, to us, in any way that we want. What are the areas, in each area what was your mean mark, and what question you didn't can answer, and so on and so forth. Okay. But you have to also remember that these SR items also have limitations. And one big limitation, or rather one big criticism of the selected response format, is the queuing. Okay, queuing means, of course, in SR, let's take a single best answer. You have a question, and you have the most likely the answer for this is A, B, C. Okay, so people say, critics of the question say, there's the list there, and even if the students do not remember in the beginning, now they say, this so there's a queue, and apparently they do not want any queues. They want students to just come up with the answer on their own, whether that is really justified or not, whether that really reflects authentic work we do. We're not sure, but the criticism is that this type of items produces cues to help the students. Okay, and one limitation which is quite important is that high quality items, have to remember that high quality meaning it follows all the guidelines in writing. They are difficult to produce, and therefore they require time. They require time to produce a good SR item. And for this section, you might want to look at table 7.1 and 7.2, which are very good summaries. 7.1 shows you the strengths and limitations of constructed response and selected response items formats. They summarize what we discussed just now. And 7.2 gives you examples of CR and SR items. Okay, so that's the discussion regarding SR items.